Happiness is something we often treat like a reward, something we will finally allow ourselves to feel once everything in life falls perfectly into place. We tell ourselves quiet little stories. I'll be happy when I achieve this, when I fix that, when people finally understand me, when life becomes easier. And without even realizing it, we postpone our happiness again and again, pushing it into a future that never truly arrives. But let me ask you something honestly. How many times in your life have things gone exactly the way you planned? Even when you achieve something big, does that feeling of happiness stay forever? Or does it slowly fade, replaced by a new desire, a new worry, a new problem? This is the pattern most of us live in. We are constantly chasing moments, believing they will give us lasting happiness, but those moments are temporary, and so the chase continues. The truth is, if your happiness depends only on results, then your happiness will always be unstable. Because results are not always in your control. Sometimes you work hard and still fail. Sometimes you give your best and still feel unappreciated. Sometimes life simply does not go your way. If your happiness is tied to these outcomes, then every setback will shake you, every delay will frustrate you, and every failure will make you feel empty. But what if happiness was never meant to depend on results in the first place? What if happiness is not something you earn at the end of the journey, but something you carry within you throughout the journey? Think about a small child. A child doesn't need a reason to be happy. They laugh, they play, they enjoy the moment. But as we grow older, we start placing conditions on our happiness. We say, only if this happens, only if that changes. And slowly, we make happiness more complicated than it needs to be. Happiness, at its core, is a choice, not a careless or unrealistic choice, but a conscious one. It is the decision to not let every external situation control your internal state. It is the ability to say, yes, things are not perfect right now, but I will not allow this moment to steal my peace. Now, choosing happiness does not mean ignoring your problems. It does not mean pretending everything is fine when it is not. It simply means you do not give your problems the power to define your emotional state completely. You acknowledge what is wrong, you work towards improving it, but at the same time, you protect your inner peace. Imagine two people going through the same situation. One constantly complains, overthinks, and focuses on everything that is going wrong. The other accepts the situation, stays calm, and focuses on what can be done. The situation is the same, but their experience is completely different. Why? Because one has made a different choice. Most of us are waiting for life to change before we allow ourselves to feel happy. But life is always changing. There will always be something missing, something uncertain, something imperfect. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you might spend your entire life waiting. Instead, what if you decided that your happiness will not be dependent on everything going right? What if you chose to find joy even in small, ordinary moments? The warmth of sunlight, a kind word, a quiet evening, a simple meal. These are not big achievements, but they are real, and they are available to you right now. When you start choosing happiness in the present moment, something powerful happens. You become stronger, you become more resilient. Problems still come, challenges still exist, but they no longer have the same power over you. You respond better, you think clearer, and you move forward with more strength. Choosing happiness is not about denying reality, it is about mastering your response to it. It is about understanding that while you cannot control every event in your life, you can always control how you interpret it, how you react to it, and how much power you give it over your emotions. So stop waiting for happiness to arrive one day as a result of perfect circumstances. Stop tying it to outcomes that are uncertain. Instead, start practicing happiness as a daily choice, a quiet, consistent decision you make within yourself. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful realization is this: if you don't choose to be happy now, there is no guarantee that you ever will. But if you learn to choose it, even in imperfect situations, then no matter what happens in your life, your happiness will always remain within your control. We spend so much of our lives trying to control things that were never truly in our control. We try to control situations, people, outcomes, timing, and when things don't go the way we expect, we feel frustrated, anxious, and sometimes even broken. But if you pause for a moment and reflect deeply, you will realize something very powerful. The more you try to control the outside world, the more out of control you begin to feel inside. Think about it. Can you control what people say about you? Can you control how others behave, how they think, or how they treat you? Can you control sudden problems, unexpected delays, or life's uncertainties? The answer is no. And yet, we keep trying. We keep expecting people to act according to our expectations. We keep hoping life will follow our plans perfectly. And when it doesn't, we suffer. The real problem is not the situation itself. The real problem is our attempt to control what is uncontrollable. But here is the shift that changes everything. You may not control the world, but you can control your mind. And that is where your true power lies. Your mind is like a lens through which you see the world. The situation may be the same, but your interpretation of it creates your experience. Two people can go through the same difficulty, yet one feels completely defeated, while the other remains calm and composed. Why? Because one allows the situation to control their mind, while the other takes charge of their thoughts. Let's take a simple example. Someone criticizes you. Now you cannot control their words, but what happens next is entirely in your hands. You can choose to overthink it, replay it in your mind again and again, feel hurt, angry, and lose your peace. Or you can pause, reflect, and decide how much importance you want to give to that criticism. You can choose to learn from it if it's useful, or let it go if it's not. The words are the same, but your response creates two completely different emotional outcomes. This is why controlling your mind is far more important than controlling the world. When you don't control your mind, every small thing begins to affect you. A delay ruins your mood. A negative comment stays in your head all day. A small failure makes you doubt yourself. You become like a leaf in the wind, moving wherever circumstances push you. But when you start controlling your mind, something shifts within you. You become stable. You become grounded. Situations still happen, but they don't shake you as easily. You begin to respond instead of react. And there is a big difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is instant, emotional, and often unconscious. It is when your mind takes over you. but response is thoughtful, calm, and intentional. It is when you take control of your mind. Now, controlling your mind does not mean suppressing your emotions. It does not mean you will never feel anger, sadness, or frustration. These emotions are natural. What matters is how long you stay in them and how you deal with them. For example, it's okay to feel upset when something goes wrong, but do you stay upset for 5 minutes or 5 days? Do you allow one bad moment to turn into a bad day or even a bad week? That is where control comes in. When you train your mind, you create space between what happens and how you react to it. In that space lies your freedom. Freedom to choose patience over anger, understanding over judgment, peace over chaos. One of the biggest reasons we struggle is because we take everything personally. Someone is rude and we think it's about us. Something goes wrong and we blame ourselves or others excessively. But when you have control over your mind, you start seeing things differently. You realize that people act based on their own struggles, their own thinking, their own experiences. Not everything is about you. This understanding itself brings a sense of calm. Also, when you stop trying to control everything outside, you save a lot of your energy. Instead of wasting your energy on things you cannot change, you invest it in things you can improve: your thoughts, your actions, your attitude. And slowly, you begin to notice something beautiful. Your happiness becomes more stable. It no longer depends so heavily on what is happening around you, because you have built strength within yourself. Life will always be unpredictable. There will always be moments that test you. But if your mind is steady, you can face those moments with clarity and courage. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "How do I want to respond to this?" Instead of trying to control every outcome, start focusing on mastering your thoughts. Because the day you learn to control your mind is the day you stop being controlled by the world. And that is true freedom. One of the biggest reasons we lose our happiness is not because of what we do, but because of what we expect in return. We put in effort, we give our time, we invest our emotions, and somewhere deep inside, we quietly attach ourselves to a specific outcome. We expect things to go a certain way. We expect people to respond in a certain manner. We expect life to reward us exactly as we imagine. And when it doesn't happen that way, we feel disappointed, frustrated, even hurt. Now think about this carefully. Is the pain really coming from the situation? Or is it coming from the gap between what we expected and what actually happened? This gap is where most of our suffering lies. We often believe that happiness comes from achieving the result. If I get this, I'll be happy. If this works out, I'll finally feel satisfied. But even when we get what we want, that happiness is usually short-lived. And when we don't get it, the disappointment feels even heavier because we had already imagined the outcome in our mind. Detachment from outcomes does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you stop working hard or stop having goals. It simply means you shift your focus from the result to the effort. You give your best in what you do, but you don't tie your emotional state to whether things turn out exactly as planned. Let's understand this with a simple example. Imagine you prepare very hard for something, an exam, a project, an opportunity. You give it your full dedication. Now, there are two ways you can approach the result. In the first way, you constantly think, I must succeed. If I don't, everything is ruined. Your happiness becomes dependent on that one outcome. In the second way, you say, I have given my best. I will accept whatever result comes and learn from it. In both cases, the effort is the same, but your inner experience is completely different. When you are attached to outcomes, your mind is always restless. You keep worrying about the future. You keep imagining different scenarios. You feel anxious before things even happen. And even when you succeed, you start worrying about maintaining that success. There is no real peace. But when you detach from outcomes, your mind becomes lighter. You focus on the present moment. You give your best without the constant pressure of, what if? You still care, you still try, but you are not emotionally trapped by the result. Detachment also helps you handle failure in a healthier way. When you are deeply attached, failure feels like a personal loss. It feels like something has been taken away from you. But when you are detached, failure becomes feedback. It becomes a lesson, a stepping stone for growth. Instead of breaking you, it teaches you. Another important thing to understand is that you are not in control of everything that shapes the outcome. You control your effort, your intention, your preparation. But beyond that, there are many factors: timing, other people's decisions, unexpected circumstances. When you accept this reality, you stop blaming yourself or others unnecessarily. Detachment brings clarity. It helps you see things as they are, not as you want them to be. And when you see clearly, you make better decisions. You act with more wisdom instead of emotional pressure. Also, when you stop attaching your happiness to outcomes, you start enjoying the process more. Whatever you are doing, working, learning, building relationships, you become more present in it. You are no longer rushing just to reach the result. You begin to appreciate the journey itself. Think about how many moments we miss because we are too focused on what comes next. We are always thinking about the result, the future, the next step. And in that process, we forget to live the moment we are in. Detachment gently brings you back to the present. It reminds you that life is happening now, not only when you achieve something. In relationships too, attachment to outcomes creates unnecessary pain. We expect people to behave exactly as we want. We expect appreciation, understanding, and consistency at all times. But people are human. They have their own thoughts, their own struggles. When our expectations are not met, we feel hurt. But when you practice detachment, you still care deeply, but you don't make your emotional well being completely dependent on someone else's actions. You begin to give more freely without constantly measuring what you are getting in return. And this creates healthier, more peaceful relationships. A detachment is not coldness, it is not distance, it is balance. It is the ability to stay involved in life without losing yourself in it. When you master this, something beautiful happens. You become strong from within. Success doesn't make you overly excited, and failure doesn't break you. You remain steady, you remain peaceful. So, do your best in everything you do. Work with sincerity. Give your full effort. Care deeply about your actions. But at the same time, let go of the tight grip on outcomes. Because the more tightly you hold on, the more you suffer. And the more you learn to let go, the more peace you experience. At the end of the day, true happiness is not in controlling how everything turns out. It is in being at peace with whatever comes, knowing that you have done your part with honesty and heart. If you look closely at your life, you will notice something very interesting. The moments when you feel the most peaceful, the most content, are not always the moments when you have everything, but the moments when you truly appreciate what you already have. And yet, this is something we forget so easily. Our mind has a natural tendency to focus on what is missing. No matter how much we achieve, how much we receive, how much we are blessed with, the mind quietly shifts its attention to what is not there. This is good, but that is still lacking. And in that small shift, our happiness begins to fade. Gratitude is the simple practice that brings your attention back. It gently reminds you of what is already present in your life. Not in a forced or artificial way, but in a deeply real and grounding way. Think about it. There are things in your life right now that you once wished for. Things that you prayed for, worked for, hoped for. But today, they have become so normal that you don't even notice them anymore. This is how the mind works. It adapts quickly. What once felt special becomes ordinary. And when everything feels ordinary, happiness disappears. Gratitude breaks this pattern. When you consciously take a moment to recognize what you have, your perspective begins to shift. The same life, the same circumstances suddenly feel different. Not because anything outside has changed, but because your way of seeing has changed. Imagine starting your day not by thinking about your problems, but by acknowledging even a few simple things you are thankful for: your health, your family, the ability to wake up and experience another day, the opportunities you have, even the small comforts around you. These are not small things. They are the foundation of your life. But because they are always there, we overlook them. Gratitude brings awareness to these overlooked blessings. And when awareness comes, appreciation follows. When appreciation grows, happiness naturally arises. The most powerful thing about gratitude is that it shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. Instead of thinking, I don't have enough, you begin to feel, I already have so much. And this feeling is not just emotional, it changes the way you think, the way you act, and the way you experience life. When you live in a state of lack, you feel restless. You feel like something is always missing. You keep chasing more, comparing yourself with others, feeling dissatisfied. But when you live in a state of gratitude, there is a quiet sense of fulfillment. You still have goals, you still want to grow, but you are not empty inside while pursuing them. Gratitude also protects your mind from negativity. Problems will still come, challenges will still exist, but they will not completely take over your thoughts. Because even in difficult times, you will be able to see that not everything is lost. There is still something to hold on to, something to appreciate. For example, even on a bad day, there might be one kind gesture, one moment of peace, one small positive experience. Gratitude trains your mind to notice that. And sometimes, that one small positive moment is enough to change the tone of your entire day. Another beautiful aspect of gratitude is how it transforms relationships. When you start appreciating people, instead of focusing only on their flaws, your connection with them changes. You begin to notice their efforts, their presence, their value in your life. And when people feel appreciated, they naturally respond with more warmth and kindness. Often, we take people for granted the same way we take our blessings for granted. We assume they will always be there, always understand us, always support us. But gratitude reminds you not to wait until something is gone to realize its importance. It brings humility. It reminds you that not everything you have is purely because of your own effort. There are many unseen factors, many people, many circumstances that have contributed to your journey. Gratitude also has a calming effect on the mind. When you pause and reflect on what you are thankful for, your thoughts slow down. The constant noise of comparison, worry, and dissatisfaction begins to quieten. You feel more present, more grounded. And the best part is, gratitude does not require anything extra. You don't need more money, more success, or better conditions to feel it. It is available to you right now, in this moment. But like any habit, it needs to be practiced. Not once in a while, but regularly. It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to reflect, or mentally acknowledging things you often ignore. Over time, this practice changes your mindset. It becomes natural. You begin to see life differently without even trying. Slowly, you will notice that your happiness is no longer dependent only on big achievements or perfect situations. It starts coming from small, everyday moments. A conversation, a meal, a quiet moment alone. Things that once felt insignificant begin to feel meaningful. This is the quiet power of gratitude. It doesn't change your life overnight, but it changes how you experience your life every single day. And when your experience changes, everything changes. Because happiness is not always about having more. Sometimes it is simply about seeing more in what you already have. If you observe your mind carefully, you will notice that many of the things that disturb your peace are not actually big problems. They are small things that your mind turns into big ones. A simple comment, a minor mistake, a delay of a few minutes, a message that wasn't replied to on time. These are small moments, but the way we think about them makes them feel much heavier than they really are. Overthinking is one of the biggest reasons why we lose our happiness. It is not the situation itself, but the continuous replay of it in our mind that creates stress. We don't just experience a moment once, we relive it again and again, adding new layers of worry, doubt, and fear each time. Think about how many times something small has happened, and instead of letting it go, you kept thinking about it. You analyzed it from every angle. Why did they say that? What did they mean? Did I do something wrong? What will happen next? And before you realize it, something that lasted a few seconds in reality occupies your mind for hours, sometimes even days. The mind has a habit of creating stories. It takes incomplete information and fills in the gaps, often with negative assumptions. And the more you feed these thoughts, the stronger they become. What starts as a small doubt can quickly turn into anxiety. What starts as a minor issue can begin to feel like a major problem. But here is the truth. Most of the things we worry about never actually happen. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We predict negative outcomes. We create problems in our mind that don't even exist in reality. And in doing so, we suffer unnecessarily. We lose our peace not because of what is happening, but because of what we think might happen. Overthinking also steals your presence. Instead of being in the moment, you are either stuck in the past or lost in the future. You replay conversations that have already ended, or you worry about situations that haven't even occurred yet. And in this constant mental noise, you miss the life that is actually happening right now. Let's take a simple example. Someone says something slightly negative to you. In that moment, it may not even feel very serious. But later, when you are alone, your mind starts replaying it. You begin to question their intention. You wonder if they think less of you. You start connecting it with other past experiences. And slowly, a small comment turns into a big emotional burden. But what if you had simply let it pass? Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every situation needs deep analysis. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for your peace is to let go. This does not mean you ignore important issues. It simply means you learn to differentiate between what truly matters and what does not. Many things we overthink are not life-changing decisions. They are small, temporary moments that do not deserve so much of our mental energy. When you reduce overthinking, you create space in your mind, space for clarity, for calmness, for better decision making. Because when your mind is crowded with unnecessary thoughts, it becomes difficult to think clearly. Another important thing to understand is that overthinking gives you an illusion of control. It makes you feel like if you think enough, analyze enough, you will find certainty. But in reality, it only creates confusion. Life is uncertain by nature. No amount of overthinking can change that. Instead of trying to figure out everything in your mind, sometimes it is better to take action or simply accept what you cannot control. Action brings clarity, while overthinking often brings more doubt. You can also notice that overthinking is often connected to fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. And when fear drives your thinking, your thoughts naturally become more negative. But when you become aware of this pattern, you can start to interrupt it. The moment you catch yourself overthinking, pause. Ask yourself, is this really important? Will this matter after a few days, a few months? Most of the time, the answer will be no, and that realization itself can help you let go. Learning to quiet your mind is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual process. It requires awareness and practice. But even small steps can make a big difference. Choosing not to engage with every thought, choosing not to react to every small trigger, slowly builds mental discipline. Also, when you stop overthinking small things, you protect your emotional energy. You save it for things that truly matter, your growth, your goals, your meaningful relationships. Instead of being drained by unnecessary thoughts, you feel more focused and balanced. Life will always have small imperfections. People will make mistakes, situations will not always go as planned, and things will not always be clear. But not everything needs your mental attention. Peace comes not from having a perfect life, but from having a calm mind. And sometimes, the simplest way to keep your mind calm is to stop giving importance to things that don't truly deserve it. Because the more you let go of small, unnecessary thoughts, the lighter you feel. And in that lightness, happiness naturally finds its place.